So the bulk of our vegetables have been planted now. The tender things like eggplants and tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers, those have all been moved to the big garden now. So my greenhouse is fairly empty, really, just a few squashes left to go out, which means that I can turn my attention once again to the flower beds. These are a huge part of our homestead. They surround the house, and it's really important to me that they look nice, that they look good. It's also really easy when you're running a farm with animals and children that they get kind of gross looking. I call it looking stale. They just look like somebody hasn't given them attention in a while. And it's really easy for feed bags or for bicycles to leak into the garden. All of a sudden there starts to be trash where the kids have gone, or just when things haven't been given the attention that they need. So what I really try to do when life is going well is to hit the garden beds at least once a week and do what I call fluffing. And I know that that's kind of a weird word for that, but in my mind, that's just what I call it. Fluffing means that I go through the gardens intentionally, and I go through sort of a step-by-step process in my mind. I run through the list, get it all taken care of, and then what's left is a beautiful, refreshed space that looks like it's been tended to and that ultimately is healthy and will keep on growing for the rest of the season. So I wanted to share with you my fluffing process today so that you can keep your gardens looking beautiful throughout the growing season. I'd like to thank Brex for sponsoring today's video. Brex is proudly the #1 supplier of imported bulbs from Holland in the entire United States, which means that you can look to Brex whether you're looking for astilbe bulbs or tulip bulbs, hosta bulbs. We're going to be planting some lily bulbs together today, some irises. They have a lot to choose from in a lot of colors. Right now, if you'd like to give Brex a try and get some bulbs going in your own garden, you can visit the link below. Use the coupon code Elliott30 to get free shipping on whatever size order that you place with Brex. Thousands of gardeners trust Brex every year to deliver on these high-quality bulbs for their garden. I am one of them. Give them a try using the link below. You're going to love them. One of the things that's good to remember when you're planting bulbs in your garden is to give them a good soak, maybe for about 30 minutes before you plant them. I have some beautiful Dutch iris bulbs that I'm going to plant right here in the courtyard where we're going to be cleaning today. So I thought I'd go ahead and soak them while we do our weeding. I also have a few other things that I'm going to be planting from my shipment here. One of them is a peony, and then I also have a few Japanese anemone, which are one of my very favorite flowers in the entire world. You still have time to plant it if you haven't yet. It's a fall blooming flower. So here's my peony. We're going to go ahead and get that soaking too. So a lot of my perennial beds that we're going to be talking about cleaning up today, they're built from bare root plants. This is a very cost-effective way to fill your garden beds. They come just as a root, just like this. You plant it now, and then next year you'll have a beautiful plant. Step #1 in the fluffing process for me is weeding. This is the least fun part, which is why we take care of it first. Now, when your beds start to get a lot more established, you're going to have a lot less weeds to contend with, but I will tell you this, if you let weeds go to seed, you're going to be dealing with them for years and years and years. So while it may seem a bit tedious to go through every week and weed, it really saves you a lot of work in the long run. If your weeds have already gone to seed, then I suggest you garden with a bucket of water. And when you pull those weeds out, you dunk them right in the water, and that'll keep the seeds from spreading everywhere. Think of a dandelion. If you dunk it into water, the seeds then won't blow everywhere. I guess there's no way out but through, huh? Most of my gardens, I allow things here and there. I'm not that worried about it, but sometimes weeds can get just a little bit offensive, and I really don't want them to spread. Part of weeding means you need to learn your gardens. You need to know what is a bulb coming up, what's a flower that's sort of spread by seed that you want to naturalize, and ultimately, what's a weed. This is also a great time as you're going through and weeding to pull out where flowers have self-seeded that you don't want them to grow. So, for example, there was a hollyhock that was here. Love hollyhocks, and I love it when they self-seed, but not in the middle of a pathway. One other thing that's really helpful before you weed is to always try to water the day before. If it's rained, all the better. But if you're like me and you need to irrigate because you don't get enough rain, then do it the night before, because then when you come out the next day to work on an area, the weeds just pull out like warm butter. Now that the weeding is pretty much taken care of for this area, we're going to move on to step 2 of fluffing, which is raking or sweeping the pathways or the mulch that you have in your garden. Most of our gardens are filled with pea gravel in the pathways, and I love to rake it so that it looks nice and fresh. It also gives me a chance to rake over and make sure that I didn't miss any weeds. In our courtyard area here, we have flagstone that's laid into the pea gravel, so I also like to sweep this free of any gravel so that it just looks nice and fresh and kept. Step 3 in the fluffing process, now that it's all raked and cleaned and weeded and beautiful, we're going to go through, deadhead any flowers that need to be deadheaded, and prune back anything that's completely gotten out of control or has died back. This is probably one of the most important steps that you can do to keep your garden not only looking good, but actually flowering. Turns out flowers like it when you deadhead them because it encourages them to have new growth and new flowers. So while this might seem a bit like you're taking the garden back, you're actually moving it forward. The next step for fluffing the gardens after everything's been deadheaded or pruned back as needed is to stake or tie things up. As the season goes on, the plants will get bigger and they tend to flop over, or maybe you've had a big rainfall and they're feeling a little bit saggy that morning. So this is a time to just make sure that everything can grow well and healthy and strong and upright for the next week ahead. The final stage in fluffing the gardens so that they look healthy and beautiful is to plant what's next. I like to think of the garden in layers. So when something's done blooming, what's going to come next? So all season long, I'm planting in new things that will take over when whatever is the showstopper now fades away. So today I have some of my bulbs from Brex that I will get into the ground. I have a few violas that trickled in from a last-minute mail order. We'll get those planted as well. But this is the time to tuck in new seeds, tuck in new plants, move things around as you'd like, and get them just looking great. I know it can seem a bit of an overwhelming task to take care of your gardens, especially in the heat of summer, but I assure you, if you just bite off a little bit every day, they're going to be beautiful. Cheers.